all of our lives, those two words, thank you, are associated with positivity and as having received something already. So your brain thinks you have received something. And this is also powerful because if you're going through a difficult time, right when you wake up in the morning is when it can feel the heaviest. When you start to become conscious and think about your to-do list or something horrible that you're struggling with, all of those thoughts can start to come rushing in. And if you ruminate and stay in bed and they are allowed to grow, you can start to have a bad day before you've even gotten out of bed. So saying thank you out loud is a way to squash those negative thoughts and then get out of bed and start moving so you're not left to ruminate about them. So that's exercise number one, and it takes 2 seconds. Exercise number two is to set your intention to be more grateful as you go about your day. And that just involves some self talk, a very quick statement such as, I'm going to be more aware of my blessings as I go about my day.
What would you do if you lost your dad and your fiance within 6 weeks? How would you move forward? Not just surviving, but somehow finding purpose, strength, and even gratitude in the aftermath. Today, on Her Unshakable Confidence, we're joined by someone who has lived that exact story, Dr. Peggy DeLong, also known as the Gratitude Psychologist. She's here to share how she turned unimaginable heartbreak into healing, growth, and a powerful mission to help others do the same. Thank you so much for joining us today, Peggy.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So let's talk about, I guess let's start there. Let's start with that story because I think obviously that changed the entire trajectory of your life. I would imagine.
Abs- Yes, absolutely. And I always say that before then, I was an ungrateful teen. I was an ungrateful young adult. And that it took tragedy in my life to discover the power of gratitude for myself. And it was when my fiance was sick and when the doctors said that there was nothing left that they could do for him and that he was going to die. That is when I found gratitude, when everything was so incredibly unpredictable. Each day, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if he'd be able to open his eyes and look at me. I didn't know if he'd be able to speak my name. I didn't know if he was going to die that day. But the one thing that was predictable that brought me so much comfort was a simple cup of hazelnut coffee. And it was in that predictability that brought me just peace and comfort. Now, and at the time, my 26-year-old self had no idea that what I was doing was practicing gratitude. Only in hindsight did it all start to make sense. And then I, started to study the power of gratitude. But it just happened naturally and out of pure necessity that I needed something to hang on to get me through those worst days of my life.
Absolutely. And I think like that example right there, the idea of a cup of hazelnut coffee, right? I think a lot of times when we talk about gratitude, we think about the big things, right? We don't think about the little things that we do on a regular basis that we don't even
Mhm.
acknowledge, right? I mean, a good cup of tea,
Yeah.
we talk about that. We're like, okay, a good cup of tea, a great glass of wine, like things that we're just like, okay, this is just part of our routine. But that the impact of having gratitude for all those little things, I imagine, compounds. So I'd love to hear more about in terms of actually studying the practice of gratitude, what you found to be most significant.
Well, I think one of the interesting findings is just what you mentioned, that our brains can't distinguish the difference between what we as humans label small or huge. Our brain does not care. When we're practicing gratitude, whether it's for a simple cup of hazelnut coffee or winning the lottery, like our brain does not care. We still get the same dose of serotonin and dopamine. So I love that information that we can encourage people to intentionally choose the simple. It's present every single day. And then it's simply more opportunities for connecting to everything that's going well in your life when you intentionally seek out the simple and things that we might take for granted, a bed to sleep on, running water. These are all things that we can be grateful for. And they're there every day. They're simple, and our brain simply does not care. So I love that that was one of the things that the research found.
Yeah, I think so often I don't think about it in the moment. I try to now, like I
Mhm.
do. I have an evening gratitude practice where I think about what I'm grateful for during the day, but I don't think like in every moment that I'm saying, okay, I'm so grateful that I have water right now, which is things that I feel like I should be doing.
Yes. And when we and also the other important part is to release any guilt. So if you so no shoulds. So just really connecting to what's out there in your life, and considering what you might be taking for granted. And then when you do, just be careful not that you're not doing with any guilt. Oh, I should have done this in the past.
Mm,
You're doing it now. But that because that's the way I felt in the beginning, that I had lived 26 years of my life of really not being grateful.
mm,
So and it felt funny in the beginning when I could find it so much in a cup of hazelnut coffee, yet I wasn't grateful when I had to share a car when I was 17 with my three siblings. Like, we had a car, but I wasn't grateful for it because I had to share it with three other teenagers, and it had a hole in the bottom. It was so rusted out you could actually see the road. Uh, but I didn't appreciate anything, and that was wonderful that my parents were able to, purchase a used car for their four children. So it really was totally eye opening for me in my darkest moments. That is when gratitude came alive for me.
Could you tell us a bit more about your background in psychology and how you transitioned from forensic psychology to what you do now?
Sure. I got into the field of forensic psychology kind of by accident. It was where I ended up doing my doctoral internship. It wasn't something that I thought I would do, but then once I got the formal training, I really found it fascinating and extremely rewarding to be in the field of child protection. And I did that for about 15 years. It was 100% of my income, and I evaluated over 4,000 parents and children and testified all over the state.
wow.
And it was extremely rewarding, especially reunification cases where I was able to recommend reunification when families did what they needed to do for
Mhm,
stability. Those success stories are what kept me in it. But then I just couldn't do it anymore. My
mhm,
brain and my heart just could not read one more story and be involved in one more case. But I thought, it was 100% of my income. What in the world am I going to do now? It was very scary. But I just know that I couldn't do the work anymore. So I read a great book by Jack Canfield called The Success Principles. And in that book, he has a very simple exercise of writing down what brings you joy and then figuring out a way to make money doing those things. At the top of my list was speaking about gratitude. Number two was making bracelets, and number three was bringing women in nature. And now I get to get paid to do all three. I speak about gratitude publicly. I have a mental health bracelet company, and I run retreats and periodic hiking events for bringing women in nature.
So I didn't know about the bracelet company. So I want to jump in there because I'm like, bracelets? Okay, I want to hear about that.
So it started when I was doing the forensic work. I was writing reports when my children were little, so that I could be home as much as possible,
Mhm,
and then I would write my reports when I put them to bed at 8 p.m. and I would work up until midnight. But I couldn't go to bed with those horrible stories of child abuse and neglect in my head. So I took an adult class in beading, and I became quickly addicted to the meditative benefits of beading. Same as reason why people love to knit and crochet. It's just
mhm,
that just calming. And I found myself making way more jewelry than I could possibly ever wear. And I thought, well, and initially my company was called Peggy's Midnight Creations because I made them at midnight. And then I thought, well, maybe I could start selling these. So my favorite bracelet to make was called the Gratitude Heals bracelet. So at its busiest, my bracelet was in 20 stores around the country. Now it's much less, and I primarily sell at speaking engagements, but I sell bracelets for grief and loss because that is what was so meaningful for me after my father and my fiance passed away and I returned to work. Somebody had given me a bracelet with an angel on it, and it brought me so much comfort just to look down at my wrist and see that angel and feel my angels in heaven watching over me, as well as the love from the person who gave me that bracelet. So I have a whole line in my bracelet company for grief and loss, another line for mental health, a thank you line, an inspiration line, and it's called Love in a Bracelet. I changed the name from Peggy's Midnight Creations to Love in a Bracelet, and I really feel that exemplifies what it is. It's love in a bracelet.
And do you still, are they still hand beaded? Do you still do
Yes,
all that?
I make them all myself. I've
Wow.
even at its busiest, the only thing I've ever had help with was my husband with putting the glue on the little knot that I would tie. One time I had a very quick bracelet order of 100, and I just made them all quickly, but I needed help putting that glue on, and my husband and I were just a little assembly line, and he helped me with that. But other than that, it brings me so much joy to have that creative outlet. It's helpful for my mental health. Even if I don't have bracelets orders, I'm still making bracelets.
Mhm.
It's very calming for me.
I can't wait to check that out because when I did
That's
my research, I did not
fabulous.
see that. So I'm very excited about that. And tell me a little bit more about your retreats because that's also something that I find really interesting. I spoke at a retreat couple 3 weeks ago and I was like, I've been on them, but I've never seen them like this. And that to me, I was like, oh, this is so powerful. Women getting together. And actually tonight we're going out to dinner with women that I went on a retreat with, and we've all stayed really close since then. So I just think there's something so special about bringing women together on a retreat. And is it just women that you bring together or?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
just women, and it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I actually started my research in December of 2019. I had a venue all picked out, and then we know what happened after
Yeah.
that. And and it has just taken me a long time to get back into in-person events. In
Mhm.
2019, I had over 50 in-person speaking engagements,
Wow.
and then it went to zero
Yeah.
because I had a book launch in 2019. So a lot of the events were about my book. And then I published another book in 2020 that had zero speaking engagements. So it's taken me a while, but I love the retreats because it's more than me just speaking. That's a component of it. I have a session where I teach about gratitude. Another session is crafting the life that you love to wake up to. And I've partnered with a yoga instructor. So she does the yoga part and she does sound bowl healing and deep breathing, and I do other more psychology related sessions. And we have had mini retreats for 5 hours. And I'm very excited that I'm hosting my first weekend retreat in Vermont in September.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you.
So let's connect gratitude and confidence because we're on Her Unshakable Confidence. So we love talking about confidence, but what do you think the connection is between gratitude and confidence?
What I love about gratitude is it instantly boosts mood. So when you are feeling down in the dumps and you have a task that requires confidence, thinking about what you were grateful for automatically elevates mood, and particularly when you reflect upon your own qualities. If you think about a time when you've gone through, through a difficult time in your life, what qualities about you got you through that difficult time? And not stopping there, but then practicing gratefulness, like really feeling the gratitude for those qualities that you still have. And that mental exercise can help to elevate confidence.
So is this part of your framework, the prioritize, plan, practice, prosper? Tell us how that
Yes.
works and like how, a woman listening to us today could say, okay, this is something I can do starting now.
Yes. The four P's is my overall framework for mental health in general. That positive mental health doesn't just happen. We need to be mindful of it. We need to make it a priority. So the four P's stands for prioritize, plan, practice, prosper. And all that means is prioritize your mental health, plan health promoting activities, practice them often, and you will prosper during difficult times. And it starts as intention. Those intention become daily habits, and then those habits become a way of life so that you're not even thinking about it anymore. So, and just about everything that I talk about falls under that framework of the four P's.
So, in terms of, I was thinking about just like daily routines and how to start tomorrow morning, right? I mean, what's the first step you would say, okay, here, do this? Because what I've realized is a lot of times, like, we'll talk about things and people are like, yeah, but I just don't know where to start. Like, I need to just give me the one little
Mhm.
thing that I can do to start.
Yes, especially when we're overwhelmed.
Mhm.
I appreciate when people tell me what to do, so I
Yes.
don't need to figure it out. Just tell me
Yeah.
what to do and I'll do it. So I have two activities in the morning that don't need to take any more than 2 seconds to do these two gratitude practices. The first is when you wake up in the morning is simply to say thank you out loud. That's it. You don't even need to be thinking about what you're grateful for. The reason this is so powerful is through the power of language. All of our lives, those two words, thank you, are associated with positivity and as having received something already. So your brain thinks you have received something. And this is also powerful because if you're going through a difficult time, right when you wake up in the morning is when it can feel the heaviest, when you start to become conscious and think about your to-do list or something horrible that you're struggling with. All of those thoughts can start to come rushing in. And if you ruminate and stay in bed and they are allowed to grow, you can start to have a bad day before you've even gotten out of bed. So saying thank you out loud is a way to like squash those negative thoughts and then get out of bed and start moving so you're not left to ruminate about them. So that's exercise number one, and it takes 2 seconds. Exercise number two is to set your intention to be more grateful as you go about your day. And that just involves some self talk, a very quick statement such as, I'm going to be more aware of my blessings as I go about my day. And this doesn't need to take any more time because you can do it while you're in the shower, while you're brushing your teeth, putting on your shoes, whatever you might do every morning, attach it to that activity, and it doesn't need to take any more time. And I like to use the door frame of my bedroom as a check, as a reminder. Once I step out that bedroom, then the dog may have thrown up, or I've got email to get to. Like all of a
Yep.
sudden, it's no longer just my time.
Mhm.
Where the bedroom is my time, I get to choose how to spend it. So that's where I have the most success setting my intention. And in the context of gratitude, or with any intention, when we set our intention, it activates part of the brain, the reticular activating system, otherwise known as the RAS, which works as a filter. And the great thing is we get to tell our brains what's important to us. So in the context of gratitude, when we tell our brains to focus on good things and things that we're grateful for, we are going to start to see more and more of those as we go about our day because we've told ourselves this is important. Look out for things to be grateful for. And it's really powerful how it becomes an unconscious activity. Your brain starts to do the work for you without you thinking about it anymore. It starts with purposeful intention, and then your reticular activating system kicks in and kind of does the behind the scenes work for you.
And I love both of those. And I want to go back to the
Mhm.
thank you piece for a second, because that is something that I really struggled with for a long time. Just being able, not waking up and saying thank you, but when someone would say something to me, being able to say thank you without discounting it, right? When someone gives a compliment, we both know
Mhm.
this, that it's, use the two words, say thank you, because it really does change how you feel. I used to find an excuse like, oh, your hair looks great. Oh, no, it looks frizzy. I just couldn't say thank you. And so, this is actually one of the things I talk to women about as well, is that using those two words will change how you move forward. And I don't know the science behind it, but now I feel like I do, because I think it really does make a difference. And something we talk about
Yeah.
all the time is say thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And you're ending on positivity, where if you say but or add anything else, you're negating it. You're taking
Mhm.
away the positivity. Yeah, so just a simple thank you and just leaving it at that. And then it also makes the other person feel good so that you're not discounting their compliment. You're
Yeah.
fully embracing it.
Yeah.
I used to tell you that all the time. And I call my friends out for doing that too. And it's like, I wouldn't give you the compliment if I wasn't genuinely meaning it. And to me, when you negate it, it's like you think I'm lying to you.
Yeah, you're right. I had to really take a step back on that and say, and the way I think about it now is that someone's not going to say something to you unless they actually mean it. Like, they don't have to take time out of their
No.
day to say that you look nice, or whatever, I really loved reading your book, anything like they don't have to take the time to do that. And they're doing it because they mean it. And that understanding really kind of flipped the switch for me of saying, yeah, the two words are thank you. Thank
Yes,
you so much.
exactly. That's
but
great.
but it's hard sometimes to get there, because we always are telling ourselves a different story inside our head. And so I think that thinking about that first thing in the morning that really does like start your day like grounded. You've planted your feet. Yes, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Especially when you consider the research. And if someone is going through symptoms of depression, the research shows that 75% of people who are experiencing symptoms of depression have trouble getting out of bed. It is a simple task, but a very difficult task if you're going through a difficult time. And simply saying thank you can be just enough of a tiny shift to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Could you tell us more about your daily power hour and what does that entail?
My power hour has changed so much over the years, and now I absolutely love it. It used to be the to-do list, getting everything done, when was it going to get done, scheduling everything. Now my power hour is really more about rest. And that
Mm.
is savoring my cup of hazelnut coffee. And now that it's spring, I love to go out on my deck and listen to the birds sing. And because I'm such a research nerd, I love knowing what it's doing to my brain, that when we listen to birds singing, it reduces stress automatically. We don't need to do a thing, just sitting there and listening to birds sing. So now I even have an app on my phone that I've downloaded. It's called Birdsong. So when I can't get out in nature, I listen to the sound of my favorite bird, which it just instantly soothes me. But being out in nature every day on my deck, I find to be so comforting. And also, if I can, if it's fits into my schedule or I create time, is a daily walk. That helps the rest of my day go so much better when I'm able to move my body. Just it helps my brain function better. So I really love walking in the morning.
So the bird thing I find really interesting because I actually saw a post about this today, which I mean, just so random. And talking about as you get older, you're always thinking like it's the old people listening to the birds and watching the birds. And now I'm that person and I really enjoy it. And I was like, yeah, I do
That's
too.
funny.
Like
Okay.
we have an owl in our neighborhood. And every morning when I wake up, it's like right at sunrise, you hear the owl. And there's something really calming about that. And again, I know there's science behind everything we do. It's really understanding it because a lot of times we think, oh, it's just that's nothing. It's just woo woo. But I think that there is so much science. I mean, we talk about positive affirmations a lot, and I would have said 10 years ago, I would have never used positive affirmations because that doesn't really work, right? Talking to yourself, but now I've realized really the power behind it and the science behind it. So I think before anybody discounts anything, they really have to take a look and say, oh, wait, that really does. There is science behind so many of the things that we're actually already doing.
Yes, and that's what I love to highlight for people, especially the simple things, because our brain will discount how powerful it is because it's so simple. A simple walk, a simple cup of hazelnut coffee, listening to birds, reading, listening to music for 5 minutes. All of those things seem so simple, yet the research demonstrates how powerful they are for mental health. So when people know the research, they don't discount how powerful it is. And are more likely to do it when they truly know how the effects on the brain and the connection to mental health.
Let's talk about your books. So tell me about both and tell me like why you decided to write and then write it twice, write
Yes,
two books.
yes.
Like so I literally am I just finished my second book. I got an email from my editor today saying don't touch it because now it's in editing and so he's like if there's something you think about afterwards send it to me but right now let me take it from here. So let's talk about your books.
Well, first of all, congratulations. It's
Thank you.
no easy feat. It's That's wonderful. So for me, actually, I can reach over and show you how my first book got started. Actually, I moved it. Sorry. It was a notebook. When my fiance was sick, I started taking notes from that first time that we sat down with the oncologist, and I just kept notes throughout his treatment after his death, and then 6 weeks later after my father died. And I'd always kept a journal since I was 14. So when I was 14 through college, it was more of a diary, just pouring out my thoughts and feelings and hoping nobody read it. The
Mhm.
journal, anybody could pick up. It wasn't so private. But then when it was all written, I thought, well, maybe this might help somebody else going through grief. But it took me a long time to finish. Like, with life, raising three children, my private practice, it just kind of got on the back burner. So it took me 25 years to finish that book. And finally, the 25th anniversary of his passing is when I had my book launch. And I'm extremely proud of that book. It really is a book about love. And people reading it pick up different relationships. Some have highlighted the relationship with my mother and really saw that as the love relationship. With others, it's my fiance and how I carried him through his illness. For other people, it's my now husband who had the courage to even ask out a new widow. And my father and the relationship with my father and my deceased fiance. And even to learning years later, after my father passed, that my husband met my father before I started dating my husband, obviously because my father died before I met my husband, but I didn't know that 10 years prior they actually knew each other. So just wonderful pieces of information that are intertwined in this book. And it's really just a book about the power of love.
And that one is called I Can See Clearly Now.
Yes, I Can See Clearly Now, a memoir about love, grief, and gratitude.
And then the second book.
And then the second book started with a simple blog. When I developed my website in 2015, my website developer said, "You need a blog." And I said, "What's a blog?" I didn't even know what a blog was. So he said, "Well, just write something that you think your audience might like to read about." So I thought about my childhood because I have repeatedly been asked the question, "What do you do to be so happy?" And it's not, I'm not special. I just learned some things in childhood that worked for me. That calling my best friend over to play made me feel good, that listening to music made me feel good, reading, that being in nature, feeding the cows, all of the simple pleasures in life and everything that made me feel good, I wrote about. And then my publisher challenged me to find the related research. So it's not just me, it's not just my clients, but it really can apply to everybody to find the research and what's happening in our brains with these simple practices. And I came up with 35 different practices. So each chapter is one simple idea. I talk a little bit about how I applied it as a childhood or throughout my life. And then I give some examples for applying it to other people's life, and then the related research just to demonstrate that it is proven by research to be effective. And that one's called Feeling Good, 35 Proven Ways to Happiness, Even During Tough Times. And it was scheduled to be released in March of 2020. But then it was completely tone deaf when there was so much going on in the world. So I rewrote it and incorporated situations with people coping with COVID and how difficult, so that even during for some people, the most difficult time of their lives, these methods worked then. And then it was published in November of 2020. But now, since that was almost 5 years ago, now once again, I feel like it's tone deaf with stories of COVID. I don't think people want to be, hearing about that anymore. So I'm considering rewriting it once again and with brand new stories.
So what are your out of the 35, do you have some top ones that really you feel passionate about? I mean, obviously you wrote 35, so you're passionate about all of them, but
Yes.
are there some top ones?
Yes, absolutely. My top is probably connection, human connection. That is what got me through. In addition to the hazelnut coffee, the human connection and love, and it is demonstrated by research that the strongest predictor of happiness is our human relationships. So any time that we spend cultivating our relationships is time well spent. So that really is it for me. So on a busy day, that might be a 30-second text to an old friend. If I have more time, I'll write a gratitude letter, or being really mindful about connecting in person with the people that I really care about. So that I would say is my most powerful. And then the other that is extremely predictable is nature. What I love about nature is we don't need to do anything, and this nature does its job for us, mostly through the power of awe, which is particularly helpful with negative thinking. When we're out in nature and experiencing awe, it quiets the part of the brain that's responsible for negative thinking. And the studies show that people actually lose sense of themselves and miscalculate the passing of time when they're out in nature, because we just kind of lose sense of our troubles and ourselves when we're out in nature. So I find that predictably healing.
We were just talking about connection today because I was looking at an email and there are three teachers at our, so we have two kids that are still, well, you're home for right now,
Yeah.
but two kids that are still home in school. Actually, one goes off to college this summer. And so one more, and then I could potentially be an empty nester after having kids in the home straight for 30 years. But we got an email that there's three teachers who are retiring, and they've all played a significant role in my kid's life.
Mm-hmm.
One of the teachers actually had reached out to me and she said, I wanted to let you know I'm retiring and I get your emails every week, but they're being sent to my school email address. I'm not going to have that anymore. And I love getting your email. So I want to make sure that I signed up correctly to get them to my regular email address. And I thought that was like so sweet, right? You never have an idea of the impact that you're making, but there was also another teacher. So, I mean, all three of them, but another teacher who really, she just made such a huge difference with, especially the youngest two children, actually the youngest three. And I sat down to write her an email today and I was like, okay, I don't have time right now to give it the justice I want, the things that I want to say, but I want to make sure that I send her something so that she knows how much she impacted our lives as an entire family. Like she's so special.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think that those things are so important where when we feel something, we say it. And sometimes I think we get really busy and then we feel guilty that we didn't do the thing. And so I'm giving myself grace to say, okay, get it out there eventually. Like make sure you, before her email address goes away, because I only have her school one, but
Yes.
make sure that she knows that what an impact she's had on our children's lives.
Yes. And so often, we don't share those nice thoughts. They might be fleeting during the day and they feel good for us while we have them, but it's even more powerful when we share them. In fact, that's the way that I view gratitude, that I view gratitude as being in such a state of appreciation that it makes us want to return kindness. So not
Mm-hmm.
just keeping it for ourselves, but returning that kindness and letting people know. And one of my favorite ways to do so is through a gratitude letter. And the research shows that when we write gratitude letters, it has a powerful impact on our mental health. Yes, the recipient gets to receive it and it boosts their mood and they can feel really good. But the act of writing a gratitude letter is really powerful for mental health. And the researchers who did this one particular study were so interested. Well, why are gratitude letters so powerful? And it was really interesting, the findings. It wasn't just the positivity, it was also the absence of negativity. So when you think about it and you sit down to write down a gratitude letter, your brain is only thinking about positive. You're not going to like sneak in anything, snarky or unkind in a gratitude letter. So it's the absence of negativity as well. So it just might be the 10 or 15 minutes throughout your whole day where there's just no room for negativity.
Is there any research on how often you should be doing things like that? Because I was thinking, okay, yes, I thought about this today. Well, I mean, should I be doing that? Not should I, but is this an everyday practice? Is it every week, every month, every
Well,
time you see something that you feel like you should?
what the great thing is, it does not need to be often. In my practice, I like to encourage people to do it every day, but on the busiest of days, make that a 30-second text. That we can all find 30 seconds to write a text. But then when you have more time, and maybe once a week or once a month, intentionally write a handwritten gratitude letter. There's one particular study that looked at 300 college students, and they were diagnosed with clinical depression. They were experiencing such difficulty that they sought out assistance from the counseling center at college and were diagnosed with clinical depression. And they put them into three different groups. One received counseling only, another received counseling and they were instructed to write gratitude letters, and then another group received counseling and they were instructed just to write about their day. The group that received the instructions to write the gratitude letters, they were told just to write one gratitude letter once a week for 3 weeks. So all they did was write a total of 3 gratitude letters. And they measured their self reported happiness level at the 4 week mark. And they reported the biggest boost in mood compared to the other two groups. But what was really fascinating was they measured their self reported happiness again at the 12-week mark. Even when they hadn't written another gratitude letter, they maintained that elevated positive mood. So it's really fascinating how it lasted for another 2 months, even when they didn't write another gratitude letter. So it's one of the most powerful things that we can do for our own mental health. So if you're having a bad day, feeling in a slump, take out a piece of pen and paper and write a heartfelt gratitude letter to somebody you appreciate in your life.
When's the last time you've done that?
I wrote all of my professors' thank you letters at the end of the semester.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
I
and I
wrote a
bet
letter to my best friend as well during that time period to say thank you for her to her
Wow.
and that I missed her.
Yeah. I think there's nothing better for me, and I think because we really don't do it so much anymore, is getting a handwritten letter. I had one person that when I had this big volunteer role, that anytime something happened, he would write and mail a handwritten letter. And I was like always excited to read it. And it wasn't just like 3 words. I mean, it was like back and front and back. Like it was a serious letter. And I always came away from that like feeling really good because someone has taken the time to acknowledge something that I had done. And so, but it's interesting now to see it from both sides, that it doesn't just impact the person you're sending it to, but how much it impacts you for actually writing it.
right, right. And I'm in the midst of that now. Unfortunately, my mother just passed away and we had her service on Saturday.
Oh,
So I received, lots of gifts and kindness in many different forms. So I kept a list of everything so I can write a thoughtful thank you to everybody. And it is truly helping me with my grief to be able to, really take the time out of my day and handwrite those letters.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I I think I'm going to take it more seriously because I don't think I realized the power that it would have on me as well. But even thinking about it today, when I was thinking about writing her a letter, like it made me feel good. Also, because I thought about all of the amazing things that she has done,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it brought back so many good, positive memories that I think that was like, oh, wow. Even before writing it, like I feel good.
Yes, yeah, right. Just thinking about it makes you feel good. And one neat story, I got reconnected to my third grade teacher through Facebook.
Wow.
We had a mutual friend, and she saw my maiden name, and then under somebody's comment wrote, "Is this the Peggy Doherty I taught in third grade?" I said, "Yes, it's me," because my Facebook name has my maiden name in it, so she knew it was me. And we got reconnected, and I was able to get her address, and I wrote her a thank you letter, a gratitude letter for her impact on me in third grade. And now we get together on a regular basis for lunch.
I
So
love that.
you never, it's nice. I think it's great if you go into it without any expectation,
Mhm.
but then when something beautiful comes out of it and rekindling an old relationship, then that's a beautiful added benefit.
Yeah, that's really special. That's fun.
Yeah.
So, tying it back to confidence one more time, what does confidence actually mean to you?
Confidence for me means is when your values and your desires are in alignment. And I also see confidence as not being without fear, but rather having the fear and doing it anyway with courage. That I believe that courage comes first. That it's hard to just have confidence out of nowhere. That it
Right.
takes courage and to recognize that courage. And then when you do things with fear, then it develops the confidence. And also, it's about not that you stop caring what people think. I think it's normal, healthy, and human to care what people think, but there's a difference between caring and worrying. So
Mhm.
having confidence is when the worrying stops and you can still care, but it doesn't transform into that worrying that makes you second guess yourself and be too concerned about the opinions of others.
Yeah, it's so interesting because for each guest we get a completely different
Mm-hmm.
answer, which I love because confidence should be something different for each person.
It's so
And
unique. It's definitely unique.
Yeah.
It needs to be. I mean, how you can't walk in someone else's shoes.
Right. Right.
Yes.
And
And I also believe there has to be some level, like, to just tapping into your intuition. And I'll use my experience of pivoting from forensic psychology to speaking about gratitude. I had no idea what I was going to do when I had that mortgage to pay, and I knew that I just could not do that forensic work anymore. I had to trust my intuition, and it was only coming from me. Like, it didn't matter that other people told me, "Oh, yes, you could do it. You can do anything." Like, it didn't matter. I had to feel it deep within me that I had that confidence to make that complete 180 pivot.
yeah, I think the idea that we need permission from other people is not how we need to think about it. We need to believe in ourselves and give the permission to ourselves to say, yes, you can do this. And so often we worry about what other people think. And I think the way you said it is really great, that yeah, okay, it's human to care about what other people think, but when you start worrying about it and then it affects how you move forward, I think that's a completely different game. And unfortunately, I think that's how many people live their lives, is they're so worried about what everybody else is thinking that they can't move forward as their true self.
Right. When I think about the pivot that I made and the feedback of people that didn't understand or trust that it could ever, support myself with, gratitude or bracelets. I remember even mentioning to the man who was working on my website at the time that he had no idea what I was talking about by these mental health and loss bracelets. And that I just had to, just not pay attention to his opinion, that it didn't matter, that I just knew that I was onto something.
Yeah, I love that.
What's the best advice a woman in your life has ever given you?
Oh,
And we always joke because I'm like, I give you great advice every day.
let's see. I would have to say that came from my mother, and it's really was also a message that I gave her eulogy over the weekend on Saturday, and that is really just the message of love, and that when you hone into love and you're concentrating on being loving, then for me that's always the right answer. That I feel good when my actions and what I say to other people is coming from a place of love.
I love you.
Oh, thank you. I love you too. That's fabulous.
So Olivia has this fun calendar that we read from at the end of every episode. It's called the Un-F Yourself calendar. And a lot of times it connects with what we're saying. So let's see what you got today.
Success and happiness are not to be confused with one another.
Mm. Yeah, I think so often we focus on what success means and forget that happiness is more important.
Absolutely. I view mental health as paramount because you could have everything in the world, a great bank account, house, job, everything. But if you're not happy, if you don't, and if you're not grateful for it also,
Mm.
then what's the point?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love adding the grateful piece to it too.
Yes, yes.
So, confidence tip of the day: take up space physically and emotionally. Whether it's walking into a room with your shoulders back or sharing your honest opinion in a meeting, own your presence. Confidence isn't about being the loudest, it's about knowing you belong there without needing to shrink, apologize, or over explain. You don't need permission to take up space. You are the permission. That's funny that that jumped in there.
I
But
love that.
yeah.
And that's so timely. Once again, in my mother's eulogy, one of the things that I mentioned, that I said repeatedly throughout it, was that her love wasn't loud. She was everyone's biggest cheerleader, yet she was a very quiet woman.
Mm-hmm.
But people felt her love profoundly at a deep level. So it doesn't need to be loud, and that confidence can be quiet and very powerful.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for being here today with us, Peggy. We really enjoyed the conversation, and I love all the science behind it, right?
Yes.
I mean, we have a lot of really fun conversations, but having those details, I think, just takes it to another level. So thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
Can you tell us where people can find you?
Sure. The best place to find me would be my website, drpeggydelong.com. And if people want to sign up for a free resource, I have, I call it the Grateful Day. And it's 5 daily exercises in gratitude that we can do in less than 5 minutes a day. And 2 of the exercises are what I talked about during our conversation. The other 3 are part of the challenge, and people can sign up for that. And it's just Dr. Peggy DeLong / The Grateful Day.
And as always, we will have everything in the show notes so you can find Peggy and
her bracelets.
And her bracelets. I can't wait to look at your bracelets. That made me very happy.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Her Unshakeable Confidence. Always remember, you are unshakable.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Her Unshakeable Confidence with Simone and Olivia Knego. We hope this episode has made your day just a little bit brighter and given you the inspiration you need to confidently go about your week. Always remember to be authentically you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And feel free to connect with them on Instagram at Simone Knego and at Olivia Knego. Till next time.